and good morning. And I know that's usually the end of the show, but I just felt there's got to be something there at the beginning. Uh, Still working on this whole background studio thing. This morning I've got Mario with us again, and we're going to talk about crime stats. We're going to talk about this bizarre trend of women in New York just randomly getting punched in the face, and nobody knows why. Mario knows why. Mario knows. Um, and I mean and then there's this other story that we're going to cover about uh the former prosecutor, the J6 prosecutor. It's actually the J6 prosecutor that put the lectern guy in jail. He stabbed some people and now he's out on bail, just free and clear. So I got Mario with us. Mario, what's up, my man?
Good morning, everyone. All right. Judge
You
stabbing people. Interesting.
what's
I
that?
guess the evil can't help but manifest itself. You understand?
It
Like
can't. It
when
just
you
cannot.
commit acts of evil, it sticks to you. Okay, and it's going to reveal itself at the
Well,
worst
and
opportunity for you.
you know the old adage, the only thing that is required for evil to flourish
Mhm.
is that good men do nothing.
Right.
And what we're about to cover here, it's not that that remains axiomatically true. What is required for evil to flourish is that good men do nothing. And part of that is that we are seeing evil actively disincentivize the actions of good men, right? So we're gonna have to talk about Daniel Penny just a little bit this morning too. But
Yeah.
let's start with the inciting incident, the piece that kind of got my goat this morning. Um, this has been going on for a hot minute now. Uh, and I've read about the story a little bit already. These ads are insufferable. Okay, women in New York City are getting randomly punched in the face and no one knows why. Oh my God, it's almost unserviceable. But okay, we're gonna get through this. For some reason, my article reader thing doesn't work on these MSN.com sites. But this article uh is originally from health topics mentioned in this article, women's health. Okay, so if you've heard about women in New York City getting punched in the face, no, it's not some weird urban legend. More and more women are taking to social media with stories of men punching them in broad daylight, and no one really knows what's going on or why it's happening. Oh, yes, yes, we do know why it's happening. So let me take you back in the Wayback Machine. Mario, you remember the knockout game?
Yes. Yeah. That began in like 2016. That was like the first mass hysteria hate crime movement, I believe. Because I remember
And
that. I remember that going back like almost 10 years. It-
yeah, at least. And then let me take you back a little further than that. Remember when we were at DLI? There was a there was a Mexican gang that was based in a nearby town that their initiation ritual, they were supposed to jump a soldier because there's a couple of military bases around there, not least of which is the Defense Language Institute, which is
yeah.
uh, a joint services base. You've got all four branches there, plus you've got some of the alphabet soup going on there, and um,
Plus they're all like military intelligence, stem cells. So it's not like you're messing with the 82nd Airborne or 101st. You know what I mean? It's softer targets.
right, yeah,
You don't want to play that game outside of Fort Benning. That could end badly. You know.
right, and like okay, Mario's a slightly larger than average strong guy, healthy, fit, especially back then. Me, I'm a giant. I'm a monster of a man. I'm 6.5 feet tall, and I'm well over 250 at fighting weight.
Yeah.
back in the day there, we were not the norm, right? Your average kid at DLI was, for one, they weren't grown then. They weren't in their, mid to late 20s. There were a lot of kids that were straight out of high school, and this was their college tour.
Yep.
So we're talking kids, we're talking, yeah, very soft targets there. And I almost hate to even bring it up, except for the experiential reference, because it's so hard not to get up on my soapbox about the disarmament of the soldiers. When you're an active duty
You've
soldier
been
in
bitching about
uniform,
that since
the
the
idea
first
that
day
you're
I
not
met you in the
always
Army.
wearing your sidearm is fucking insane. But there we go. Sergeant Major says he was a $165 when he started at DLI, and he did go there as a younger man than I was when I went there. That Dad, you were what, 20 when I think you got to DLI, 20 or 21 maybe. I was 25 when I got to DLI. Mario,
Yep.
not the same.
25.
And that, like, it wasn't super widespread, but we actually lost a few soldiers to that shit.
You talk about, I remember the one soldier who was like seriously injured by via stabbing at a club in Monterey, and that was the end of his military service. Like he was damaged for life from what they did.
Yeah, and there was another one. He was out with some friends. They went to a pub for dinner, and he had ridden his motorcycle. Girlfriend was with him, but she didn't want to get back on the motorcycle. And I hate that I can't remember his name. I feel guilty about that a little bit. But the story was everybody else got in the car and left. And as soon as they left, as he was about to get on his bike and ride off, a bunch of dudes came out, jumped him, and they just beat and stomped the shit out of him. So let me bring this back around to the story. The knockout game was kind of similar to that. It wasn't always part of a gang initiation, but in many cases it was. I wonder if there's not a piece of that going on with this. But more importantly, let's talk about Daniel Penny for a second. And I pulled up this article from CNN because I want you to look at the framing here in particular.
Subway performer. Add that to the list.
Former Marine held New York City subway performer in chokehold even after man ceased all purposeful movement. Okay, to call this guy a subway performer, let me remind you, St. Floyd once brutally beat a woman and threatened to shoot her in her pregnant belly before he suicided himself with a fentanyl overdose. Right? Ahmaud Arbery, the jogger, he was a serial burglar. And it wasn't just that his the whole thing with the jogger motif around the story of his death, but his criminal record, his rap sheet, had dozens of counts where his MO was to pose as a jogger to case a neighborhood and then commit several burglaries before moving on. And he had been arrested for this several times. It was his MO. But the headline that you get is, you've heard us say Dindu. And you'll hear the lefty say, "Oh, that's just a racist euphemism for the N-word." Okay, let me say that's a fair assessment. And I'll say that's a fair assessment in a very particular context. In the context that we have a disproportionately high number of offenders that match that specific demographic. And when I say disproportionately high number of offenders, 15%, a black man is 15 times more likely to commit violent crime or homicide than a white man in America.
Right. And a white
That
person
is
is
not a small number.
10 times
And
more
that,
likely to be a victim of a crime by a black man,
correct.
than vice versa.
But then let me bring you back to what I was saying a minute ago about the only thing required for evil to thrive is for good men to do nothing. In the case of Daniel Penny, what happened is this so-called subway performer. This was a repeat violent offender, a repeat violent offender who had been released without bail on several occasions, who was not only attacking the people on a subway, but verbally, vocally, and vociferously and repeatedly asserting that he intended to kill them.
Hmm.
Daniel Penny, a U.S. Marine, applied a perfectly reasonable rear naked choke to subdue the criminal, who then succumbed to his circumstances. Daniel Penny, who, let's be very clear about this Marine stepped in and employed his military training in the defense of the citizens of the United States of America by identifying, engaging with, closing on, and destroying the enemy of the Constitution of the United States of America. Because the street performer, so called, this, what was his name? Nathan, uh,
Uh,
I forget.
I
Oh,
don't remember.
Neely.
Yep.
So Neely, I mean, Neely was hurting people and threatening to murder them. And Penny stepped in and did the right thing. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't think Penny should have had to apply a chokehold to Neely in this case, because Penny's a
Because
Marine.
Neely should have
He
been
should have been able to
institutionalized.
draw his sidearm and resolve the situation much more efficiently.
Neely had been a known mental health risk for like a decade in New York. Like he was common.
Yeah.
Like the police saw him and they knew him and they knew his antics. So he should have been in an asylum. Same as at least two of the examples of people punching white women on the street in New York. They're all mentally unfit. They shouldn't be free.
Matt Walsh covered this, and he was talking about the statistics on it. There are about 150 people in New York City right now who have committed 7,500 crimes between the 150 of them. Repeat offenders who keep getting let back out. Right? You could just lock those 150 people up and reduce the crime rate in New York City by half.
It's like the Pareto principle, and it applies to crime too.
Yeah, exactly. The Pareto distribution applies to absolutely everything mathematically. The Matthew principle: from those who have the most, more will be, or to those with the most, more will be given, and from those with the least, more will be taken. Everything will be taken. Yes, the vast majority of all matter in the universe is coalesced into the tiny minority of the largest stars. And if you engage in a group project in an academic setting, one person will do 80% of the work. And that applies to absolutely every metric ever. If you were to take all of the wealth from all humans on the planet and then redistribute it evenly amongst everyone, then the top 1% from before the redistribution mechanic would then amass the other 90% almost overnight.
All right.
And that's not something that we have to speculate about. We've seen it happen in countries where you've got a regime falls, everything breaks down, and it's a certain group of people. And I'm not making a veiled racist reference here, because I'm talking about, any number of different countries where we've seen this happen. Uh, a certain group of people will amass the majority of the wealth, and it doesn't even necessarily have to happen through violence. Not that that's not an option, but it's not necessary. You can simply be productive and profit. But I bring up the story of Daniel Penny in this context. The reason a primary reason, a main reason, a contributing reason that these women are getting stricken in the face just randomly in the street. It's the same reason that people are willing to be so vulgar and so derogatory and cruel online. Consequences have been removed. The fact is this: the police do not exist to protect you. If you're a law abiding citizen, the police exist to prevent you from enforcing the law when the law needs to be enforced. The police exist to protect criminals from law abiding citizens. Because if you're a criminal and you're faced with an offender, you will engage in crime, assault, murder, etc., in order to deal with that offender, in order to protect yourself and your interests from that offender. As law abiding citizens, the police exist to prevent us from engaging in acts of justice
Yep.
when they're appropriate. The
Yep.
only interaction as just a normal citizen that you're going to have with the police, assuming that you're not, if you're not a criminal, then the only interaction that you're going to have with the police is where a
Unexpected
crime is
taxes.
being fabricated for the purposes of revenue collection or the
Yeah.
purposes of subjugating your freedom to defend your life, liberty, and property. The police, and I hate this.
Yep.
Mario, you were a kid once. I was a kid once, right? Remember Cops? Remember the cartoon Cops? Right? You had long arm with the cybernetic arms with the handcuff on the end of it. Cops were your friend. Cops were the good guys back in the 80s, right? We believed that policing was a noble profession. And I believe that it is and should be a noble profession that has been grossly infiltrated by dangerous and evil men. That's the world that we live in now.
I mean, the police exist to serve the status quo. They exist at the pleasure of politicians. So whatever whatever virtue or lack thereof, you have with your political class, that's going to seep to the police force as well. So they exist. I mean, tax collector under penalty of death. I mean, at most cynical. That's how I describe them.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a protest outside of our local here in Conyers. God, it's already been 2 years ago, but 2 years ago they were talking. The Board of Commissioners was talking about increasing property taxes in Rockdale County by some outrageous, like almost 40% in 1 year. And there was a protest. And there were, this was one of those things where legit there were Republicans and Democrats out there waving signs and protesting. And of course, the police were there. And as the event was kind of wrapping up, I live streamed and shot video there and published a bunch of interviews and stuff from there. As the event was wrapping up and some of the presenters gave their final remarks, I got up on the stump where everybody was talking, and I waved at the Rockdale County Sheriff's deputies that were out there, and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, give I see Rockdale's finest right here. Give a round of applause for the local revenue collection agency. Thank you."
And then with the 0% murder clear rate, like it.
Yeah.
Don't you guys solve 0 murders in Rockdale?
we want to increase your property tax by half, but murder's just it is what it is. Pit Danny points out it was an actual stump. Yes, it was in fact an actual stump. Most of those videos are only available on Rumble, and that's all I'm going to say about the rest of that here. So basically, I was going to talk. No, I am going to talk a little bit about this, and then I've got a conclusion I want to discuss. And I just hit a button on the Stream Deck because I forgot we're doing this thing, and the Stream Deck works. It doesn't work here. Okay,
Hey,
former Justice Department prosecutor accused of stabbing driver in Tampa road rage fight. Uh, it says accused of stabbing driver in Tampa road rage fight. I'm not going to play the video right here, but I'm going to show you the image.
nice. Look at
There's
this.
a dash camera that filmed the incident. So apparently, what happened is the one driver had some kind of medical emergency, right? Fell unconscious, slumped over in his car, and bumped into somebody else. And I say bumped because apparently it was heavy traffic. He bumped into somebody else, not the prosecutor, and then woke up and I imagine was disoriented and confused and hit the gas and hit another car, which was the prosecutor. So this is the prosecutor that prosecuted several of the J6 defendants, including the infamous lectern guy, who, by the way, all the news stories said he stole the lectern. He didn't. He didn't carry the lectern. He picked the lectern up and held it and
It was a
had
photo
his picture
opportunity.
taken,
Yeah.
smiling with it. He picked it up, did a photo op, and put it back down. He was
And
charged with
the podium
unlawful
was right
presence.
there. Like it was, he didn't go digging for it. It was literally right there under the stairs,
Right.
in the rotunda. So, for what it's worth.
Right, but all the news headlines made it sound like he smashed Nancy Pelosi's office to absolute smithereens and then went digging through them to find the podium so that he could steal it because he had this psychotic belief that he could that by doing that he could steal her job. It's fucking moron. Anyway, this guy.
Not to mention the foot on the desk the foot on Nancy's desk that almost destroyed democracy.
Yes.
The foot.
But this is the prosecutor that said there must be accountability. There must be accountability. So yeah, there's dash cam video. There is no doubt at all that the man who was clearly stabbed, because he was taken to the hospital where his stab wounds were stitched up, was stabbed by the prosecutor pictured here, because the video shows him pull out his pocket, pulled out like a Swiss Army knife, and just stab the guy repeatedly. I've watched the video. He just comes in there and stabs the shit out of this guy.
I mean,
Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley weighs in on the latest developments of the January 6th committee hearings and what is missing from them on Your World. A former U.S. Department of Justice prosecutor whose tenure included January 6th cases has been accused of stabbing a Florida man in a road rage fight on a bridge outside Tampa, Florida. Florida Highway Patrol troops arrested Patrick Douglas Scruggs, 38-year-old attorney, on the Howard Franklin Bridge after he allegedly hacked up a 35-year-old man with a pocket knife, according to authorities. Again, it says allegedly. There is no allegedly to this. He fucking did it. And we have the proof. We have the video of it happening. The incident began when the victim slumped over his driver's seat and stopped traffic during the morning rush hour on Tuesday. A pair of good Samaritans went to check on him, and he woke up, hit the gas, and crashed into the car in front of him, according to police. I want to get to the more important part of this. Scruggs accused of smashing through the window and stabbing him multiple times. And there he is. Former federal prosecutor Patrick Scruggs, 38, is accused of stabbing another man in Rose Rages. The attorney recently left the DOJ, where he prosecuted January 6th. It doesn't matter who he is, Iglinski said. What he did was really, really scary, and the way he reacted there was really frightening. The victim was taken to the hospital with serious injuries, but was expected to survive. Scruggs was taken to the Pinellas County Jail, where he was booked on charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault, and armed robbery. Okay. Aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. He stabbed the man repeatedly. He's the only reason he's not being charged with attempted murder is because he's on he's on the right side of the political party. The only reason he's not being charged with attempted murder, full stop, is because he did such a good job of prosecuting those evil, evil insurrectionists.
I'd like to know what meds he's on. I guarantee there's something. I mean,
He was released Tuesday evening on a $65,000 surety bond. There's the photo op, right? Adam Johnson, and he said this, and I think this was from Twitter. My crimes were so egregious that he demanded I wear an ankle monitor, be drug tested at random, surrender my passports, be restricted to Middle District of Florida, and given a nightly curfew, wrote Adam Johnson. What restrictions do you think he should get for stabbing a man repeatedly in public? Because, to be clear, there are none. So, let me bring all these together and put a bow on it so we can go ahead and wrap this show up. Here's what's happening in America today. The police are actively preventing good men from doing the work that is your divine obligation, which is to say, the defense and safeguarding of decent humans, and most especially those weakest and most innocent among us. Right? It would be appropriate in this context also discuss the several pro-life protesters who are currently serving time in jail for so-called violations of the FACE Act. People who committed no violence. They prayed in front of abortion clinics and had their homes raided by FBI thugs, where they were taken into custody at gunpoint by men waving firearms at their children in their homes. It is not just that all it takes for evil to thrive is for good men to be doing nothing. We live in a world now where armed agents of the government are going out of their way to guarantee the success of evil by actively interfering on the behalf of evil and restricting the reasonable intervention of good men. Women in New York are getting punched in the face at random right now because the three good men that live there know that if they try to stop a thug from punching a woman in the face, they'll be shot by a dozen cops. It really is that simple. And if they survive being shot by those officers, they'll be dragged in front of a Soros-funded prosecutor who, between hookers and blow, will put them into fucking jail for the rest of their lives for the crime of refusing to tolerate the slings and arrows of abject evil.
Yeah. And then, it's social media driven, the knockout game and what you're seeing currently in New York. All right. It's, back in 2006, advent of the smartphone, removing that IQ wall to the internet and social media.
Yeah.
It gave all of social pathology was given free access to the internet. And that's why you see these trends. And it is racial, of course. No one said it yet, but everyone knows.
I thought I've said it several times on the show already. So, I'm going to have to put a pin in it there. Guys, I beg you to be strong and understand that if you find yourself needing to, you find yourself in a position where you have the opportunity to engage on behalf of someone who needs your help, understand that there is a risk that you're taking by intervening on behalf of those who require your assistance.
Especially if you use a firearm.
That risk is worth taking.
I agree. I've done plenty of rear
Yeah.
naked chokes. I would have done the same.
God. Okay, anecdote, and then I'm going to put a pin in it. You remember? We were at Goodfellow. We were at IHOP one night playing cards, and the waitress comes running back to the back corner where the smoking section was. Help! Help! Somebody's choking. I think her name was Cindy. Somebody's choking Cindy. Cindy was a, I don't know, mid-40s woman. A little overweight. She really should not have been doing what she was doing. She was a cop. She was the off-duty cop that was pulling security for the IHOP in the middle of the night in East Texas. Right? Now, I don't mean to be cruel, but she wasn't fit for that job because that's the kind of job where if you actually ever have to do the job you're there to do, you need to be fit to do that job. But all of a sudden, we was in an instance, and I remember that moment fondly because it was me and Mario and Dunks and the
Amoroso or
little guy.
whatever.
Yeah,
Amoroso. Yeah.
Amoroso. And it was just beautiful the way it happened. All four of us jumped up. Dunks and Amoroso immediately secured our equipment and prepared an evacuation maneuver. Mario went directly onto crowd control, and I went and took command and control of the offending party. The black guy that was trying to choke out this poor lady cop in East Texas. Okay. I mentioned his race because I want you to understand the scene here. It's East Texas. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and a black guy is sexually harassing the white waitresses at the IHOP. The cop comes to intervene. She's a slightly older white lady, and the black man puts the white woman in a chokehold, and he's punching her in the head as she's struggling to try and get her taser out and tase the guy. And that's when I walked up and put him in a rear naked choke, and I wrapped him up, and I didn't just choke him out immediately. I wrapped him up, and I said, and I tried to explain the situation. I was like, my dude, you are making a serious mistake right now. You could calm down, and this can go better. And he starts calling me the N-word and screaming, "I'm going to kill you!" And I said,
"Oh, that's
wrong
it.
answer.
Pet the kitty."
Pet the kitty. Right? Pushed his head forward, and it took no time at all before he went completely limp in my arms. I took his wallet and stuffed him in the back of the cop car, and we opened up his wallet with the police officer to get his ID out. And that's when we discovered that he was an E6 in the Air Force and a member of the Air Force Military Police, what they call the SF,
Security
Forces.
Yeah. Classic.
And whoo, buddy, whoo. And then I called our drill sergeant and told him, "Drill sergeant, we just had an encounter with the police. I know I'm supposed to let you know as soon as that happens." You remember him, Drill Sergeant Parkabov?
Which one?
Parkabov. He was the little short Russian drill sergeant with the eyebrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's the one I had to call at 3 o'clock in the morning. And of course, that was the story that was told by the drill sergeant to. They read the blotter to the unit at PT Monday morning.
Yeah.
That was a potentially high risk situation, but guys, you've got to do the right thing when you are faced with making choice at cusp. To make the wrong choice is to die. Robert A. Hyman, thank you. So
there you go.
I'm going to go ahead and put the pin in it there. Thanks for watching today, guys, and we will see you tomorrow.